The term Puer Aeternus, or eternal boy, evokes an image of eternal youth, carefree freedom, and infinite potential that refuses to be constrained by the concreteness of adult life. In Carl Jung's psychology, the Puer Aeternus is a powerful archetype associated with dreams, creativity, and the desire for transcendence. However, it also carries a shadow, the fear of responsibility, the loss of freedom, and the confrontation with the limitations of the real world. Jung saw this archetype as a dual force. On its bright side, the Puer symbolizes innovation, spontaneity, and the ability to see beyond the conventional. But when the archetype manifests in an unbalanced way, it can trap an individual in a state of emotional immaturity, unable to fully engage with the realities of adult life. In this context, taking the reins is much more than a simple act of conscious decision. It is a deep psychological process, requiring the individual to face the fears associated with growth. It involves reconciling the infinite potential of dreams with the inescapable limits of reality. One of the symbols often associated with the Puer Aeternus is Icarus, the young man who, in his eagerness to fly higher, ignores his father's advice and ultimately falls into the sea. This narrative captures the Puer's dilemma, the desire to surpass limits, confronted by the inevitable consequences of ignoring reality. Jung reminds us that psychological growth requires the integration of these aspects. The energy of the Puer should not be repressed but channeled. The eternal child, understood here as anyone embodying the archetype of the young dreamer, must recognize the value of their wings, but also learn to respect the dangers of flight. This learning, however, is not immediate, it is a journey. In ancient societies, rites of passage played a crucial role in helping the young cross the threshold between childhood and adulthood. These rituals not only marked the transition, they confronted the individual with the realities of the world, demanding courage, sacrifice, and commitment. In the modern world, many of these rituals have disappeared. The contemporary Puer often finds themselves lost in a psychological limbo, stuck between the desire to explore the world and the fear of being consumed by it. As Jung points out, this lack of structure is not harmless. It prolongs emotional dependency, fostering a sense of alienation and reluctance to take control of one's destiny. When the eternal child finally decides to take the reins of their life, they are not merely making practical choices, like taking a stable job or starting a family. They are committing to life in its entirety, embracing its pains, responsibilities, and finitude. It is an act of courage, a psychological rebirth. The shadow, another central concept in Jung's psychology, plays a crucial role in this context. While the Puer identifies with the light and idealistic aspects of the archetype, the shadow holds the qualities he rejects: fear, insecurity, and resentment toward the demands of growing up. Ignoring this shadow only perpetuates the cycle of escape. However, by facing the shadow head-on, the individual discovers that it harbors a powerful force. When integrated, the shadow provides the balance necessary for the Puer to transform into a complete adult without losing their creative essence. Taking the reins of life, therefore, becomes a process of reconciliation between the freedom of the Puer and the responsibility of adulthood, between dreams and reality, between light and shadow. It is an act that requires courage, but also compassion, toward oneself and toward the archetype that, even in maturity, continues to inhabit our unconscious. The process of taking control of one's life demands that the Puer Aeternus confront what Jung would call the collapse of illusion. The eternal boy lives in a world of infinite possibilities, but avoids committing to any of them. This is the central dilemma. Absolute freedom is a trap that prevents fulfillment. Jung asserted that Modern man cannot move forward without sacrificing his infantilism. Yet this sacrifice is no easy task. Often the Puer is sustained by narratives that perpetuate his evasion of reality. He believes, for example, that there will always be more time, that the world will one day recognize him without effort, or that suffering can be completely avoided. These myths, though comforting, are fragile ground that crumbles in the face of life's inevitable crises. Indeed, crises often serve as the catalyst for the eternal child to abandon his illusions. A significant loss, the end of an important relationship, or even a sense of existential emptiness can act as invitations to growth. In these moments, the Puer is forced to turn inward, confronting the reality that life demands commitment, sacrifice, and an acceptance of human limitations. In many cases, the anima, the feminine aspect within the male psyche as described by Jung, plays a crucial role in the transition of the Puer toward a more mature existence. While the Puer Aeternus tends to project his anima onto external figures, such as idealized lovers, psychological maturity requires that he reintegrate this aspect back into himself. The Puer's relationship with the anima can be fraught with conflict. He often seeks in her a muse, someone to inspire him and keep him connected to his inner world of dreams. However, Jung emphasized that the true integration of the anima occurs when she is no longer projected, but recognized as an internal force. At this point, the anima becomes a guide, helping the Puer navigate the emotional challenges of adulthood. The process of integrating the anima demands that the Puer relinquish his idealizations. He must acknowledge that no external figure can fill the inner void. In doing so, he discovers that the creativity and inspiration he once sought outside of himself were, in fact, always available within. This marks a profound transformation, signaling the beginning of a new relationship with himself and the world. A central aspect of the Puer Aeternus's transition to maturity is the acceptance of responsibility. Jung viewed responsibility not as a burden, but as a pathway to self-realization. He asserted that we are responsible not only for what we do, but also for what we fail to do. For the Puer, this concept can initially be daunting. After all, taking responsibility means leaving behind the safety of unrealized potential and committing to concrete choices. Responsibility is often seen as the opposite of freedom, but Jung shows us that this is a false dichotomy. In truth, it is by embracing responsibility that the Puer discovers a deeper freedom, the freedom to live fully, rather than merely dreaming of what could be. This shift toward action is a way of overcoming the paralysis that often accompanies the archetype of the eternal boy. Responsibility, however, is not solely individual. Jung recognized that psychological growth is intrinsically tied to service to the community. The mature Puer not only commits to his own life, but also to the well-being of others. This step is essential on the path to individuation, the process of becoming a whole and authentic being. The hero archetype, often associated with the Puer Aeternus, also undergoes a transformation throughout this process. In the beginning, the Puer's inner hero is grandiose and idealized, seeking glory and recognition. However, as he matures, this hero becomes more humble and realistic. He learns that true courage lies not in avoiding pain, but in facing it head-on. The Puer's hero's journey transforms into a journey of self-discovery. This transformation is marked by the recognition that the world is not perfect, and that this imperfection is precisely what makes it beautiful. The Puer who takes the reins of his life does not abandon his dreams, but learns to make them tangible, shaping them within the limitations of the real world. He discovers that meaning is found not only in grand achievements, but also in the small acts of love, care, and dedication. For Carl Jung, psychological growth culminates in the process of individuation, the journey toward wholeness. At this stage, the Puer Aeternus, by taking control of his life, transcends his identification with fragmented aspects of his psyche and moves closer to the self. This Jungian concept refers to the core of personality, the totality that integrates both the conscious and the unconscious. The Puer, who embraces his individuation journey, does not forsake the values of youth, but learns to integrate them into a richer, more mature whole. He comes to understand that childhood is not a stage to be denied, but a foundation upon which maturity is built. This integration demands a profound reconciliation with the shadow and consequently with the parts of himself he has rejected or feared. Jung emphasizes that the encounter with the self is often accompanied by symbols of wholeness, such as the circle or mandala. In the context of the Puer Aeternus, this encounter may manifest as the ability to hold paradox, to be both creative and responsible, a dreamer and practical, idealistic and realistic. This integration is the antidote to the internal conflict that so often defines the archetype of the eternal boy. In the contemporary world, the journey of the Puer faces unique challenges. On one hand, society prioritizes productivity and materiality above all else, leaving little room for cultivating the inner world. On the other, excessive individualism and the erosion of collective values have created a sense of existential emptiness that can fuel the Puer Aeternus archetype in its most unbalanced form. The modern Puer may seek refuge in distractions, excessive consumption, hollow idealizations, or even superficial forms of spirituality. While these paths may offer temporary relief, they lack the depth necessary to sustain a true sense of purpose. Jung identified this dilemma as one of the greatest issues of the modern age, stating that the greatest danger to the human soul is the loss of meaning. Taking the reins of life in this context requires not only individual effort, but also cultural resistance. The matured Puer must question prevailing values and pursue a life aligned with their inner truth, rather than conforming to imposed standards. While the Puer's maturation involves accepting reality, this does not mean abandoning imagination or dreams. On the contrary, Jung emphasized that imagination is a vital bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, and that dreams often serve as messengers of the self. The maturation of the Puer does not sever his connection to these aspects, but transforms them. Rather than indulging in unchecked or escapist dreaming, the matured Puer learns to use imagination as a tool for manifesting what is meaningful. He understands that dreams, when aligned with concrete action, have the power to transform both himself and the world around him. For instance, someone who once drifted aimlessly in fantasies of success can, upon maturing, use those same visions as motivation to create something tangible, be it a meaningful career, a work of art, or a contribution to their community. This is the balance Jung described as the harmony between the inner and outer worlds. A central issue in the journey of the Puer Aeternus is his relationship with the father figure, both external and internal. The Puer often rebels against the authority of the father, symbolically representing a fear of limitation and loss of autonomy. However, this initial rejection must evolve into a mature acceptance of internal authority. The inner father is the aspect of the psyche that provides structure, guidance, and healthy boundaries. When the Puer takes the reins of his life, he learns to cultivate this figure within himself, replacing immature rebellion with a sense of discipline and self-leadership. This process is not mere submission, but a reconciliation. The Puer comes to realize that authority, when balanced, is an ally on the path to personal fulfillment. In the myth of Icarus, previously mentioned, the father Daedalus represents this mature wisdom. While Icarus loses himself in his quest for limitless transcendence, Daedalus symbolizes the balance between ambition and prudence. Likewise, the maturing Puer does not abandon his desire to soar, but learns to fly wisely. Upon completing his journey, the transformed Puer returns to the world not as an eternal boy, but as an adult who retains the vitality of youth, tempered by the wisdom of maturity. He becomes a catalyst for change, inspiring others to find their own balance between dreams and reality. This return to the world marks the culmination of the individuation process. Here, the Puer recognizes that his growth is not solely for himself, but also for the community to which he belongs. He discovers that life is ultimately a dance between the individual and the collective, between potential and action, between the eternal and the fleeting. Throughout the journey of the Puer Aeternus, one central theme emerges: the search for purpose. Jung believed that human life finds meaning when it is lived in connection to something greater, be it an ideal, a vocation, a spiritual relationship, or service to the community. This sense of purpose is the ultimate antidote to the paralysis of the Puer, who, without direction, becomes lost in his incessant quest for freedom. When the eternal child takes the reins of his life, he is not merely resolving practical or psychological issues. He is aligning his existence with a deeper meaning. This alignment is crucial to avoiding what Jung called the neurosis of emptiness, a condition common in modernity where the absence of purpose turns freedom into anguish. The maturation of the Puer is, therefore, more than a personal triumph. It is a contribution to the world, for an individual who finds purpose inspires others to do the same. As Jung suggested, the transformation of oneself is an act of transforming the world. When the Puer commits to his life, he also commits to creating a more balanced and meaningful world. Paradoxically, the maturation of the Puer does not mean abandoning the inner child. In fact, the journey of psychological growth is cyclical, where the mature adult revisits and reintegrates the healthy, creative aspects of their youth. This reconnection, however, arises from a place of wisdom and balance, rather than immaturity and escapism. The inner child of the transformed Puer becomes a source of joy, imagination, and authenticity. It serves as a reminder that life should not be lived solely as a burden of responsibilities, but also as an adventure filled with curiosity and wonder. This balance is one of the most valuable legacies of the individuation journey. Jung noted that true wisdom often feels simple, as if returning to something we always knew. For the Puer Aeternus, this wisdom is precisely the ability to unite the free spirit of youth with the maturity of an adult who understands the value of roots and responsibility. The maturation of the Puer Aeternus also carries profound social implications. A Puer who takes the reins of his life becomes a more authentic and responsible partner, friend, parent, or leader. He is capable of building relationships not based on projections or idealizations, but on a genuine commitment to others. Moreover, his transformation challenges society to rethink its own priorities. The balance between freedom and responsibility that the Puer discovers in his journey can serve as a model for communities trapped in extremes, whether rigid conformity or irresponsible escapism. The matured Puer demonstrates that it is possible to dream big while living firmly grounded in reality. Carl Jung gave us invaluable tools to understand the Puer Aeternus and its role in our lives. He showed us that this archetype is not a problem to be solved, but an energy to be balanced and integrated. The Puer, with its ability to dream, and the mature adult, with its ability to act, are not opposites, but complements. Jung's work reminds us that each of us carries a piece of the Puer Aeternus in our unconscious. Whether we are grappling with our own internal struggles or helping others on their journeys, Jung's teachings guide us toward a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. He invites us to see life not as a series of problems to overcome, but as a continuous opportunity for growth and integration. The story of the Puer Aeternus is not just the story of individuals struggling to mature. It is also a reflection of humanity's universal struggles. At some point, we all face the dilemma between the desire for absolute freedom and the necessity of commitment. We all confront the challenge of balancing our dreams with the demands of reality. When the eternal child takes the reins of his life, he reminds us that maturity is not the end of dreaming, but the beginning of their practical realization. He teaches us that growing up is not about renouncing the magic of life, but about transforming it, enabling us to live that magic more fully and consciously. Ultimately, the Puer who finds balance inspires us to do the same. He is a symbol of hope, showing that no matter how challenging the journey, growth is always possible. As Jung wisely said, it is not what happens to you that matters, but what you choose to do with it. And that choice, to take the reins of one's life, is the most transformative act we can undertake. Thus, the journey of the Puer Aeternus reminds us that we all have the power to take control of our lives, integrating dreams and responsibilities to achieve a fuller, more meaningful existence. If you enjoyed this video and feel inspired by this reflection, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear about your own journey. And don't go just yet. Check out the videos on the end screen for more profound and transformative discussions on psychology, self-awareness, and personal growth. See you next time.